Hi, this is Brandon from Talk Tech, back here again with another video. Today we're going to be covering the third video in my QEMU KVM virtual machine series, which is going to be interacting with your virtual machines. So I've got my whole desktop here so that you can kind of see everything that I'm doing. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about as we're launching into this is I want to talk about obtaining the IP address of your virtual machine. Now, keep in mind that if you really wanted to make it easy, you can just go into the virtual machine, type in IP address, and get it that way. Yeah, but that's easy, and we're really trying to focus on utilizing the command line for this series. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and shut. Let's just go ahead and exit from that. I'm going to bring it back up. I'm going to reboot it. Okay, we're going to reboot that one. All right. So the first command that you can use to access your VM's virtual machine is going to be the virt-net-dhcp-leases and then the virtual machine name. I'm actually just going to close that out right there. All right, so that's going to be virt. It's going to be, well, I'm going to close, virt-net-dhcp leases, and then we're going to do the network that you want to go at, that your virtual machine is using. Basically what this command is doing is it's allowing us to view the DHCP leases for the default network, and this is the only virtual machine that's associated with that, so we've got the IP address right here, and you'll see why this is important as we go through this video. Now, the second method is going to involve having a QEMU guest agent installed on the virtual machine. Let me bring this back up again. All right, I'm going to sign in here. All right, so prior to executing this command, you're going to want to make sure that the virtual machine has the guest agent installed, which you would install with sudo apt install QEMU guest agent. All right, let's put in the password. All right, it's already installed on here, so I don't need to install it again. But what this is going to allow us to do, with this command, it's going to allow us to query the virtual machine itself from our host machine, so we can obtain that information. So the command is going to be virt. It's going to be virt dom if addr for domain interface address, and then we're going to do peppermint. Now, if you get this output right here, you're missing one additional thing. Because if you look at a lot of resources online, they're going to say, yeah, just use this command and it's going to automatically give it to you. But that's not necessarily the case. What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go ahead and add additional source, and then you're going to do agent. And that's going to give us what we're looking for, which is this bad boy right here. All right, so the first way of accessing your virtual machine that I want to go ahead and cover here is going to be utilizing Virt-Manager. Now, Virt-Manager is what you saw me kind of interacting with it already. So really, let me just close out of all of this. Virt-Manager is a front-end application for interacting with your virtual machines. This is very similar to VirtualBox or VMware Player. So you can access them, you can modify them, you can set them up, you can delete them, you can pretty much do all that stuff directly through Virt-Manager. That's not something that I'm going to be covering too much in this series, but I wanted to go ahead and show you because it is kind of an easy way to be able to interact with them graphically. So you'll just go down to the icon, or if you have it on your whatever distribution you're using. I'm using KDE here, so you can search for it whichever way, and then just double click on it, or right click and click open. And then you see here, this is actually going to be the dashboard with our virtual machines. And we can already see that we have Peppermint running. So to go ahead and actually access the VM itself is you'll just double click on that. And there you go. Now, say you come in here and you're like, well, it's running, but I want to go ahead and shut it down. You can do that over here. Now, if you try to issue it a shutdown, it's going to go ahead and actually it's going to be as if you select the shutdown option inside the virtual machine. So usually what you'll want to do is you'll just want to go ahead and force it off. And it could cause data loss. There's nothing important on this, so be mindful of that, is that it could cause data loss. But to go ahead and access it, again, I'm going to show you different ways. You can double click on it, and if you notice, when you pull it up, it says guest not running. Well, how do we get it running? What we're going to do is we're going to hit the play button. And voila, there we go. We've got it there. And then you can also just easily shut it down this way by clicking the power button right here. Let's actually, it probably just needs to finish booting before we can hit that power button. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and bring it back up again. You've got all these different options up here. You can send different keys to it. This is allowing you to resize, scale, full screen. This is some other options for your VMs, and then your file menu here. And then easily you'll just go ahead and put in your password. Bada bing, bada boom. There we go. We've got ourselves signed into this virtual machine. So, oh, cool. Easy enough, right? I'm just going to go ahead and close that out. I'm going to minimize that. So we can go ahead and start talking about the second method of accessing your virtual machine. Now, the second option is going to be virt-viewer. Now, one of the things that you're going to want to make sure before you use virt-viewer is that the virtual machine is already running. And you can always check virtual machine that are running with virsh list, and we'll get in more into the virsh command and I believe the next video in this series, so don't be alarmed, just kind of take it in now and wait for the next video. Now we can already see that peppermint is running, so we're great to use virt-viewer. Now if it wasn't running, you got to start it and then go ahead and access virt-viewer, access it through virt-viewer that way. So accessing it through virt-viewer is actually really easy. You're just going to do virt-viewer, and then you're going to go ahead and just type in the virtual machine name, and there we go. Kind of something similar to Virt-Manager. You can send keys, help, view, and file. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and minimize that. All right, and it's still running here. Since we did it this way, you're going to have to actually cancel it out. So you can either do one of two ways. You can either just do it this way. Let's bring it up again. And come back over here and just issue a Control-C. And close it that way as well. Now, one of the really cool things about virt-viewer is that you can access remote virtual machines utilizing it as well. And this is what got me started on this whole journey of learning virtual machines. I wanted to have a centralized server in my house that I accessed all my virtual machines from without using, an off-the-shelf, if you will, like Proxmox or something like that. So what there's two things that you're gonna need to do first. Now, the cool thing is about these first two steps is it's going to show you how to set up accessing an SSH client, a remote SSH client, without using a password. It's going to use a key or certificate or whatever you want to call it. So I'm not going to actually be executing these commands. I'm just going to show you what they are because I've already done it. I don't want to mess anything up. So we're going to do SSH, then we're going to do keygen. And what this is going to do is actually going to generate that SSH key. And you'll get a little bit it'll ask you a couple of questions if you want to set like a passphrase and things like that. So that's up to you. Just go through the prompts. That's solely up to yourself. I'm not going to be doing that. I usually just kind of accept the default. The next command is going to be SSH, and it's going to be copy ID. And then what you're going to do is you're going to actually put in the username and the IP address of the remote SSH client. And essentially what this is going to do is it's going to take that command, that key that you just generated, and it's going to send it over to that SSH client. It's going to tell them like, hey, look, this key is associated with this login and this password. So anytime that I come to access your client, allow me to do so with this key, because this what it's going to do is you're going to be sending them your public key, which is a key that everybody can see. And this is like public key cryptography, Diffie-Hellman kind of stuff. That's something you'd like to see a video on. Let me know down in the comments, and I could always take a shot at covering that. This is going to send that public key saying, hey, look, this is the public key for myself. This is how you know it's me. And it's only associated with this key that I just generated, which is the private key. Let me access this anytime that I come in with looking for this user. And then the first time what you'll have to do is you'll actually have to put in the password, and then it'll start associating with it. Now, let me show you the results of doing those two commands before we actually get to the virt-viewer command. We're going to do v at, boom. We didn't have to put in a password to automatically sign me in. And We're good as gold, so let's go ahead and exit here because we're going to need to actually go ahead and use virt-viewer now. So the command is very similar to what we were doing previously with virt-viewer, but we're going to add a little bit more to it. So we're going to do virt-viewer, and then we're going to do tac-c, which is going to allow us to use a URI or a uniform resource indicator. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do QEMU, and then we're going to do plus SSH. We want to make sure that we are using SSH because we want that conversation to be private. And we're going to do the ://, and then we're going to do the username at the remote IP address. Then we're going to do another / and then system or session, depending on how you have it set up. Typically, you want, like going back to the virt install, you're usually going to want to set that up as a system. But if you aren't sure about that or have questions, go back to that video. It'll explain things there. All right, it's going to pop up a little window here saying, hey, which one do you want to access? Cool. Boom. There we go. Now, you can access this a different way using the same command, and a little bit easier is just type in the virtual machine name, and there you go. Now, essentially what's happening here is anytime you're using, virt-viewer is you're interacting with this using, a graphical server. Like when we did the virt install command and we selected Spice, that's using the Spice server. The two most common are Spice and VNC. They're pretty much the same thing, but VNC is not encrypted, so I would highly encourage you to use Spice. There's a great video by a YouTuber named DJ Ware. He does a really good job of explaining the Spice server. So if you have any questions, feel free to access that video and get some more information about it. But yeah, so that is accessing virt-viewer, both locally and remotely. Now, the next thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go ahead and go over accessing it through the Virsh console. All right, and let's close this one out because we want to be able to go back here. Let's go here. Let's bring this one up. We're going to bring back the Peppermint on our host machine. And the virtual console is basically kind of like if you were to go ahead and connect to a to a machine through a serial connection. This is the same thing, but we're doing it through a virtual serial port. So what if you have two methods of doing this. You can either install it when you're doing your virt install, which you would add the option console, and then you would do pty target, target dot type equals virtio, and then you would add that to it, and then you would just go through the install, and it would automatically put it on there. Now, we did not do that as part of our video, so what we're going to do is we're going to add it manually. You're actually going to go into the client VM, and you're going to go ahead and start the, let's go to sudo systemctl start. All right, and we're going to go ahead and do serial, and then we're going to do getty at tty s0. Make sure that's a 0. That is not a capital O. .service. Let's put in the password. I think I put it in wrong. Whoops, we added start to serial, so let's go ahead and fix that. There we go. Now you do the same thing for enable if you want to go ahead and enable it on boot. All right, and let's go ahead and run a systemctl status serial service, and there we go. We've got it active there. So perfect. Yeah, that's all set up, and then either way that you have it available on the VM is what you'll do is it's pretty easy to go ahead and access the virtual console. Is you'll do virsh console, and then you'll type in the VM name. All right, it's going to give you the escape characters right there, the caret or the control close bracket. And then what you'll do is you'll go ahead and hit enter. And there we go. Now go ahead if you want to, now we can see that we're clearly inside of that client. We could even do an IP address. And we can see that that's our IP address right there, or we could also, we can see the host name there. Now, if you want to go ahead and exit, you're going to go ahead and hit Control, close bracket, and that's going to take us out of there. Now, the final thing that we want to go ahead and do is SSH into that virtual machine. So this is gonna work on any that are done locally. Now you can SSH into a remote virtual machine, but what you'll need to do is you'll need to actually set up the bridge differently to have an actual bridge connection where it's going to be on your local network versus through any of the virtual networks. That's not something I'm going to cover now. That's something I will cover down the road. So if there's any questions that come up in regards to that, please leave them in the comments below, and then I'll address them in the video once I get to it. But it's pretty simple to go ahead and SSH. What we're going to do is we're going to do SSH, and we're going to do the username. And boom, now we can see it was, we're just going to do an IP address, and we can see that, whoops, hold on, my apologies. This is the wrong one. Let's go ahead and try that again. That's the whole reason I copied it. There we go. Now we're in there. It's the same thing as SSHing into any other machine. All right, well, that's pretty much all I had for this topic. So if you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumbs down. Let me know what I could have done better, or let me know what you're liking about what I'm doing, any suggestions, or if there's anything that you'd like to see outside of what I'm already doing, or have questions maybe for future videos and things like that. I'm going to hopefully be posting these a lot more frequently than I have in the past. Just the holidays did make things a little slow, so I appreciate your patience with me getting these videos out. I want to thank you very much for watching my video, and have the greatest of days.